bill introductions this morning? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the first of the budget report outs this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Chairperson Williams with the K through 12 education budget, and she's going to have the Kansas State School for the Blind and the Kansas State School for the Deaf. Chairperson Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, let's start with the School for the Blind. Normally, I would have you open your volumes, but we don't have those yet, so just open what has been prepared for you. And I shall do the same. Kansas State School for the Blind provides 40 students intensive service on campus and another 1,500 students vision impairment services statewide. The mission is to provide services to those who are blind or visually impaired up to the age of 21. KSSB doesn't work alone, rather they create partnerships locally with their community, their schools, parents, and they assume, and their whole purpose is to help those that are visually impaired to assume active, responsible, and contributing lives in all of our communities. So I also wanted to let you guys know that in the years that I have overseen this budget, that I have heard such complimentary things about both of the schools that we'll talk about today, and they have the highest of standards and do an excellent job with their budgets. So for fiscal year 2023, the agency recommendations. The agency submits a revised estimate of $9.4 million, including $6.3 million SGF. Enhancements include ESSER funding, additional school food program funding, capital improvement, inflation adjustments, and $260,000 for 2 resource officers. Note, whenever we're talking about capital improvement for these 2 budgets today, those all come from the State Institute's building fund and not SGF. And they go through that committee process with the State Institute Building Fund as well, SIBF. For the governor's recommendation, the governor recommends $9.14 million, including $6.1 million SGF. The agency receives adjustments to rehab and repair, and they needed to secure their breezeway between their buildings, lots of buildings on these old campuses, and so the HVAC wasn't up to local standards. The biggest difference between the agency request and the governor's is the governor only recommended $50,000 for the resource officers because by the time our budgets are finished, we only have a few months left, and the $50,000 will be sufficient to cover the resource officers for the remainder of 2023. And also to note that this is part and is overseen by the Kansas Department of Education under their jurisdiction. And let's see, the K-12 Education Budget Committee did concur with the governor's recommendation for 2023. If there are no further questions, or if there aren't any questions, I can move forward.
I don't see any questions, so move on to 2024.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For fiscal year 2024, the agency requests expenditures of $12.4 million, including $8.3 million SGF. This is a pretty hefty increase of 31.2% above the fiscal year 2023 revised estimate. The increase included 12 enhancements, and you can, mine was on page 8 and 9. I don't know if you have the full, yes, okay.
That's correct, 8 and 9.
Okay, 8 and 9. So you can take a look at all of the enhancement requests. Note that many of these requests are not SGF, but many of them are SIBF. The big increase was from a request to expand services to children birth to 3 years of age with a $1.5 million cost. It also includes $300,000 for the extended year summer school and the full cost of the 2 school resource officers, which is $273,000, I believe. Okay. Great. So I wanted to just pause for 1 minute to talk about the agency request about the 1.5 Actually, I'll talk about it with the governor's recommendation, so I'll move forward. The governor recommends total expenditures of $10.9 million, including $6.8 million SGF. It's a decrease of $1.4 million, which is all SGF. The decrease is due to the governor not funding the 0 to 3 expanded services for children in this budget, but they did move the request to Tiny K. And I just wanted to note that I do appreciate that. One thing our committee really tries to do is try to not duplicate services. We have a massive social service budget and with many different agencies. And so from this budget, the goal was last year to find existing funds. And so through the executive branch and their assistance, they found a place in Tiny K that it would fit nicely. So it will not be overseen by the School for the Blind, but the services are provided. I don't have details about exactly what that all entails, but it seems like that's a great thing, again, when we can not duplicate services. In addition, there's a decrease that's partially offset because of it's difficult to find workforce, and so there's a lot of contractual services now being used instead of having in-house. The only thing in-house, I think, is the laundry and maybe one other service. So the K-12 Education Budget Committee did concur with the governor's recommendation. So, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions for either 23 or 24 budgets for the School for the Blind.
Committee, are there any questions for Chairperson Williams? Seeing none, Chairperson Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommendations for the fiscal years 2023 and 2024 budget years.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion to approve the budgets. Is there a second? Second by Representative Ballard. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Chairperson Williams.
All right, on to our next budget. Okay, this is the Kansas State School for the Deaf. All right, let me find my papers. The agency overview. Kansas State School for the Deaf is located in Olathe and is one of our oldest state properties. There are even, I have to tell you, there's a legendary account I just realized this year in which, the football signals that you give, they are supposed to have been created there at that site with the School of the Deaf when they were playing football. They used that sign language that then was translated into some of the signals that our football players use today. That's what I was told, so let's see. I don't know. I didn't fact check it. Anyway, their campus enrolls 150 students in 2022 and has a target goal of 160 in 2024. In addition, they serve over 130 school districts, and that totals over 658 students across the state. The newly funding Learning Assessment Plan serves 56 young individuals, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But the LAP, the Language Assessment Plan, is something that we've been talking about for at least specifically 3 years in this committee. KSSB serves individuals up to the age of 21, and their services are vast and include American Sign Language, English language, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech and language therapy. It is a state agency under the Kansas State Board of Education. All right, so for fiscal year 2023, the agency recommends, the agency submits a revised estimate of $13.9 million, including 10.9 or 10.2 million SGF with an all funds increase of 6.9%. and a decrease of SGF of 1.2. This is because last year the Budget Committee recommended, and thus this committee agreed, that the language assessment plan that had not been previously recommended by the governor to be funded in full. And so what happened is last year in 2023, we said we will fund it if ARPA does not, but we want to look for federal dollars first. And I think that's what many of our budgets wanted to do last year. That was the goal, to save our SGF. And that was approved. The executive branch did, and the Spark Executive Committee did decide to allow funding to go that way. That was $386,000 that was funded through federal, if you will, COVID money, pandemic money, that you will see in the next budget moved into SGF. So that's great news that that was accepted. The governor recommended 13.7 million, including 10 million SGF. This is due to the governor recommending to pay only the 50,000 of those resource officers. It's exactly the same as the other budget. And so we're just finishing the year and we'll just pay 50,000 for those 2 resource officers. K-12 Education Budget Committee concurred with the governor's recommendation. Mr. Chairman, I can move on or take questions.
Seeing no questions, we may move on to 2024.
All right. Now, this budget gets just a little bit more interesting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For fiscal year 2024, the agency requested $15.7 million, including $11.4 million SGF for fiscal year 2024. This is an all funds increase of 1.7 million or 12.5 above agency's revised 2023. This is mostly attributable to enhancements of salaries and wages and capital improvements. The governor recommends 15.1 million, including 10.9 million SGF. This is an all funds decrease of 541,000 SGF. The governor does not recommend agency staff increases, and you can see those requests on page 8, which outlines all the staff increases, including the school counselor, the instructional coach, the parent outreach, the job coach. There is an increase of the priority that was set by the school, which was 2 SRO officers, and that was included in the governor's recommendation. The governor also concurred with the agency's request for capital improvement expenditures, all from the SIBF, and you can also look on page 8 through 17 for any of those, and the total, those totals for those capital improvements are $2 million. Okay, so again, we agree on the language assessment plan. I think it's great when the executive branch and the legislative branch actually come together and resolve to fund this. It has been something of a dispute over the past few years, so that is included in the base budget. So now, you heard me talk a lot about the base budget last year. Before I talk about the recommendation that came out of committee, look at that first page and take a look at our base budget, which I'm going to look at the actuals for 2023. You can look at the state general fund of 9.5 million. And you can also look at the subtotal, but let's take a look at that SGF because that's the one that I'm primarily interested in. And then look at the governor's recommendation for 2024. And then I'll share with you our recommendation, which is above the governor's recommendation. So the governor's recommendation is 14% higher than what we did in 2022. And I actually didn't calculate, but if you add $82,000 to that, what our committee recommended, then that 14% is higher. I could do a quick calculation, but that'd take me away from talking to you guys. So here's the situation. Our committee did make a with a close vote, did decide to include the counselor. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about that. If you were to look on your packet on page 8, you would look at all the different FTEs that were requested. And I don't disagree, and actually it's on page 8 here, quite a few of them. The counselor, the instructional coach, the 2.5 outreach jobs, so forth. But I want to just take a moment and pause on that because we're talking about a campus that has 150 students. I didn't get a breakdown of how many students are seniors, juniors, sophomores, and all the way down to grade school. So I don't have that breakdown for you. But if you can imagine 150 students spread equally or some amount across those different grade levels. And then you do have a superintendent, a well-connected, very very good superintendent. And you have your teachers, your instructors, you have local community services through mental health services, you have workforce services that are in the county, Johnson County, where this is located. So the request was not included in the governor's because the SRO officers were of prime importance. And because at this point, there was, at least from that perspective or that budget, the priorities were filled. So it was my desire not to take that SGF permanently up and add a counselor at this time. I felt like we weren't given enough rationale. One of the things that they shared in committee is that they would lose accreditation. Well, in Kansas, you don't really lose accreditation. There's no district that's lost accreditation, and I would doubt that the state board would remove accreditation of an existing organization, existing school, like the School for the Deaf or the School for the Blind, because they don't have that staff position. And in the years that I've served as chair, I don't recall that item being a priority request or even a request, unless I've missed it. It was not, during the appeals process, it was, I believe, included, but it was not highlighted in my time talking to the budget office, as well as KLRD. So that was not my recommendation to include it, but that is, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation from the committee. It would be to add $82,000 to $83,000 for the counselor. And I will now stand for questions.
Committee, are there any questions for Chairperson Williams for the School of the Deaf? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It'd be number 6, I believe, the increased salary for lower paid staff to $15 per hour. Do you know what they're paying right now to their lower paid staff?
Chairperson Williams.
No, I don't, but I do know they do get an inflation. Their teachers for sure get the same pay increase percentage that the Olathe school teachers get. So if the Olathe teachers get 3%, then they would. But for staff below that, they're going to have to compete with the market. So I will check and see if we know what that might be. I don't know what the Johnson County market would be for that.
Make sure we can capture that.
Representative Hoffman.
Yeah, so I won't make a motion but I want to make sure that we capture that for when we do look at the salaries later on, that we look at this, because I have a feeling that they're probably having trouble finding people. If they're below that 15, I mean, you can go flip burgers practically now for 18. So in some of these areas, it's something we probably should look at. And so I won't make a motion, but I just want to make a note of it that we should look at that later.
Any further questions for Chairperson Williams? Seeing none, Chairperson Williams.
All right. Then with that, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we pass out, or that we accept the recommendation for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 for the Kansas State School for the Blind.
All right.
Deaf, sorry. Deaf.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, second by Representative Ballard. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Budget is passed out. All right, thank you, Chairperson Williams. We'll go ahead and move on to Chairperson Mason, and he is going to start us off with the Board of Nursing. Chairman Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all. If you look at your packet on the Board of Nursing, page 2, you'll look at it's a fee-funded agency. Most of the funds come from the Board of Nursing Fee Fund, and there's a bit of the funds that are coming from the Criminal Background Fee Fund. So we're talking about 3 years here. We're talking about finishing fiscal 23 and then 24 and 25. The agency submitted a revised estimate for this year of $3.7 million, and these are, of course, all from the fee funds. And they're retaining the 27 full-time positions. It's an increase of $159,000, or 4.7% above the fiscal year 2023 approved amount. So the things that they're asking for enhancements is a software upgrade, roughly $189,000. And then they're adjusting their criminal background fee amount that they're using in the budget down by $30,000. And that's because they are anticipating lower graduates and therefore lower applicants. The governor concurred with the revised estimates for 2023, and the committee concurred with that. I'll stand for questions.
I'm not seeing any questions. If you could just go ahead and move on to 2024 and 2025, and then we'll stand for questions after that.
After that? Okay, will do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 2024, the agency requested $4 million. Again, all from special revenue funds and the same 27 full-time positions. It's an increase of $327,000 or 8% above the agency's revised estimate, 2023 revised estimate. And the significant items include licensing software upgrades. So they're implementing phase 2 of their 3-year IT plan, which will enhance their licensing procedure. The governor concurred with that request for 2024, and the budget committee concurred with that. In 2025, the agency requests $3.9 million, all special revenue funds, and the same 27 full-time positions. It's a decrease of $59,000, or 1.5% below the agency's fiscal year 2024 request. And decrease is largely because of those one-time expenditures for software upgrades. The governor concurred with the agency's request. The committee concurred with that. And I will stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Mason. Is there any questions in regards to 23, 24, 25? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I'm not familiar with the history and how their IT project developed, just need to ask, is this something that's being done in coordination or in conjunction with OITS, or is this entirely in-house and maybe it'll speak to the rest of our system and maybe it won't?
Chairman Mason.
I'm told that it's not in conjunction with OITS. And what was the rest of the question? I'm sorry.
Well, that answers it.
Okay.
One of the difficulties, if I could.
You may.
And just kind of add color to this. One of the difficulties that we've had in the past is that each agency took it upon themselves to develop their system the best way that they needed it. And that was great until those agencies have to cross-communicate, in which case we run into serious problems. That's kind of why OITS was established in the first place. And while it's had a long and clunky history, oversight of these kind of projects is really something that I would prefer to leave, at least in an advisory capacity, in their hands. And maybe there's more information coming in.
Chairman Mason.
I'll tap dance and wait.
I beg your pardon. I can't process two voices at the same time.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just stalling while you got additional information.
And I kind of have this deal where I tuned you out, so.
You're not alone.
Well, I'm being told that it may be possible that they are coordinating. We just don't know, but we can get that information for you.
I'd really like to look into that, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for Chairman Mason? All right, seeing none, Chairman Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Appropriations Committee approve the recommendations for the Board of Nursing for fiscal years 23, 24, and 25.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Ballard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Budgets are passed out. Chairman Mason, the Kansas Board of Pharmacy.
And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I've asked Ranking Minority Ballard to do that.
All right, that is perfectly fine. And Representative Ballard, if you could just go ahead, because I was looking through it, looks fairly simple, so just go on to 23, 24, and 25.
Thank you,
And then we'll
Mr.
stand for
Chairman.
questions.
It's a pleasure. You know, if you remember, with the Kansas Board of Pharmacy, especially with K-Tracks for people that are new. Part of that was because of the opiate and being able to track what was going on with medicines throughout the state. And they had money first from SGF, and then after that, we said they had to find another funding. So as a result of that, Ms. Blasey did a lot of grants. And at one point, we took some fees from different agencies in order to make it work, you know, and that worked for a while. We are no longer taking the fees, and as a result of what I would call the Kansas Opiate Litigation Settlement Fund, now the K-Track program really has $200,000 that comes from the Kansas Attorney General's office. So it's finally solvent in many ways. And we asked, would that be enough? And she said they could make that work because she will continue to seek grants. And as a result, they do have 3 grants right now that's ongoing. And the last grant, they plan to reapply for that to extend it. So she feels they're in very good shape. And I think she's done what we asked her to do many years ago, try to do this without total SGF funds. Yet the whole state benefits from what they're doing. So I think you've looked at some of the things that they have done, but I'll go on with the budget. The agency submits a revised estimate of $4 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures of 19 FTE positions. This is a decrease of $23,056 or 0.6% below the FY 2023 approved amount. The decrease is attributable to a decrease in expected expenditures for salaries and wages, partially offset by an increase in contractual services. This also includes a decrease of an 0.8 full-time position. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate for FY 2023. The Budget Committee concurs with the governor's recommendation in FY 2023. The agency for 2024 requests $4.2 million, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 19 full-time positions. This is an all-funds increase of $217,720, or 5.4% above the 23 revised estimate. This increase is primarily attributed to computer software maintenance, employer contributions for group health insurance, salaries and wages, and out-of-state travel. The governor concurs with the agency's request for FY 2024. The Budget Committee concurs with the governor's recommendations. For 2025, the agency requests $3.8 million, all from special revenue funds, and also the 19 full-time positions. This is an all-funds decrease of $418,117, or 9.8% below the FY 2024 approved amount. The decrease is primarily attributable to computer software maintenance, salaries, and wages. The governor concurs with the agency's requests for FY 2025, and the Budget Committee concurs with the governor's recommendations for FY 25. I'm happy to stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for Representative Ballard? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I imagine this is probably because of the K-Tracks, but it looks like that their fee fund, you know, has really taken a hit over the years. Do they have, I mean, are they going to have to raise their fees? Because they've gone from 2.4 million to just a little over 235,000 in that fee fund.
Representative Ballard.
Yeah. Yes.
That's right.
I think part of it is she's hoping to offset that by the grants.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at the bottom where she says the last grant, let me see if I can look it up. It's 2024, but then the board, here it is right here. The K-Tracks funds, they have the grants. They have the CDC grant, the BJA grant, and the SAMHSA. The board intends to apply for a no-cost extension for the Harold Rogers grant that would extend that. So part of that, she thinks, between the grants and all, that they may not have to raise the fees because they have more members joining
Okay.
and everything else. But if you know Ms. Blasey, she has figured out how to make this program work. She has gone after those grants, and she's watching that closely in terms of how they can do it. But even though she has this 200,000, which is like something they've never could count on before, the grants are still important for them in order to keep that fee at a level.
Okay, well, I was just wondering, because it's gone down quite a bit, so eventually, if something doesn't change, they would have to do something. I was wanting to look at page 11 on the performance measures, and just, did you guys talk about the K-Trax queries? That is amazing. From 2021 to 2022, they had almost 3 million more queries to K-Trax. Is that because of the opioid, or did you guys talk about that at all? It's just amazing. It's that many, that big an
We
increase.
did
Representative
talk
Ballard.
about that, but I can tell by a little conversation we had in the hallway, opioids had a lot to do with it. They also have one technician working for them as well as 2 pharmacists, and they do unexpected, what I want to say, drop-ins to see if everything is going the way it's supposed to go. And normally when they're in and out like that, they're able to pick up any little things that are not going right, and that's what they follow up on.
Okay, well, wow, that's quite an increase in the number of queries. So,
Any further questions for Representative Ballard?
What do you mean to there was one?
All right, seeing none, Representative Ballard.
I'm sorry, I was trying to answer part of the question. No. Okay, I'm fine, if you have any more questions.
There are no more questions, so
Okay.
motion.
The one thing I would like to just comment, if you remember, over 15 years ago, when it came before the legislature about the medicines that were new and unopened, what would we do with that medicine, is throw it away or whatever, and we passed a bill that indicated that we would try to redistribute it to those who were unable to pay and everything else. And there's a warehouse in Olathe. Well, Ms. Blasey reported to us that up to date, that has saved the state over $46 million. And at the same time, we've been able to distribute it to those people that really needed that medicine for whatever reason. You know, somebody passed away, they left the medicine and everything else. So, you know, when people say sometimes, what have the legislature done lately for you? Well, in this instance, we did a lot. Instead of throwing this medicine away and not using it, we have put it into practice, and it continues to work for us. And that is Mrs. Blasey really staying on top of what's going on. Did you have a comment? Okay.
Do you have a motion?
Make my motion?
Yes, make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the budget for the School of Pharmacy for 2023, 24, and 25.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Helgerson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you, Chairman Mason, and also Representative Ballard. We're going to go ahead, and I'm going to open the hearing on House Bill 2191. And this is a bill that would authorize the Children's Cabinet to form a 501c3 for fundraising purposes for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Book Gifting Program within the Children's Cabinet. And so I'll turn it over to Jill to give us a briefing on House Bill 2191. Jill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. What House Bill 2191 does is authorize the Children's Cabinet to form a 501c3 for fundraising for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Book Gifting Program. And just by way of background, generally, a state agency only has the powers that the legislature grants them by statute. So if an agency wanted to form a 501c, they would need to go to the legislature and get statutory authority for it. Just further by way of background, the State Fair Board has the specific authority to form a nonprofit, and then the legislature in 2021 granted the Department of Corrections the authority to form a nonprofit. So what this does is allows the Children's Cabinet to do so for this specific purpose of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library book gifting program. The bill specifically says the Board of Directors will consist of members of the Children's Cabinet, the Executive Director of the Children's Cabinet, and other directors designated by the Children's Cabinet. And then the purpose is to receive gifts, donation, grants, and other monies and engage in fundraising for that library work gifting program to develop, implement, promote, and sustain reading for children in Kansas. The bill would take effect on statute book, which is July 1, and I'd be pleased to stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for the reviser? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Excellent job in describing House Bill 2191. The first proponent that I have is Melissa Ruker. She is the Executive Director with the Children's Cabinet. Executive Director Ruker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This committee a couple years ago gave the Children's Cabinet the responsibility of becoming the statewide sponsor of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library book gifting program. We are delighted with that charge. It has been, I think, one of the most fun projects that we've had to work with the most meaning in return, because all it is a program designed to give parents in Kansas an opportunity to choose to sign their children up to be recipients of the books. Children are eligible from birth until their 5th birthday. The very first book sent in the program is The Little Engine That Could, because this is Dolly's favorite book. It's shrink wrapped. The mailing label is on it. This is how it is received in the mailbox. There is no extra advertising or any other materials. Dolly is very protective of the program and of the database. She will not sell the information. It is strictly for use by the program. Her foundation, the Dollywood Foundation, is the parent organizing entity for the program, and they provide a tremendous amount of support to the program all across this country, and I think we're in 5 other countries around the world. So when last I checked a couple weeks ago, the program had mailed something shy of 198 million books to children worldwide. The program itself is free for families, and she will not allow any kind of criteria to be put in place for the program. She wants it to be universally available. The cost of the program within the context of the state is $26 per year per child. And the structure of the program is to have a local affiliate share 50% of that cost, and then we as the state level partner bear the other 50%. So we are using our tobacco settlement funds through the Children's Initiative Fund. Last year, this committee approved and the legislature passed a budget that included a line item in our CIF budget to support the program. And we actually are on track to more than spend down the current allocation. So we will also have a request for an increase in that line item from within our Key Fund CIF universe of resources. The one thing that we need to have done is to form a nonprofit for us as the state lead affiliate partner, because that is the nature of the program for 3 reasons. Number one, the nonprofit status is required for the favorable postage rate. So to keep costs down, we get the nonprofit mailing rate, and so that is one requirement, number one. Number two, we want to be able to fundraise from the private sector, and currently that is a function that the cabinet has not been able to engage in. So we do want to put a sustainability plan in place for the long term. We would like a rainy day fund so that we can help struggling local programs and we can help grow and maintain this program for the long haul. We also would like donors to the program to receive some form of tax receipt for the donation that they give. So for that purpose, we do need the nonprofit. We have had assistance from the Dollywood Foundation on a temporary basis because we do not currently have the nonprofit status. So you can see from the bill, the ask is a narrowly tailored financial entity that would allow us to fundraise and sustain the program with help from the private sector. And with that, I would be happy to stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions for Melissa? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Melissa, thanks for being here. Have you expanded it into the whole state? You've got donors or organizations within the whole state now, or?
You should have a map on page 3 of your testimony that shows our current status.
Guess I should get this.
We are at nine counties away from full statewide coverage. We do have a few areas that have partial coverage within the county. So we are definitely, our goal is that within this calendar year, we will have full statewide coverage and make sure that every family in the state has the option of signing up. That will then allow us to leverage our promotional effort at the state level. We can partner with hospitals where families give birth. We can, there's a lot of opportunity to us once we are fully statewide. And I will say that we have added 30 counties since we took over the state level. So we've helped fill that map in and grow the program significantly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, 2 of my counties, well, the county I live in is Comanche. And I know when my kids were young, we used to get it. So I didn't know, the South Central Foundation is in that area. Is that a foundation that you've reached out to? Do you know?
Let me make an invitation. If any of you see an area in your district not covered, I would welcome contacts, and we can sit down and talk to the local nonprofit foundations. We have library partners, United Way chapters, education foundations. There's any number of programs. I'm told that in other states, the rural electric co-ops are partners, Rotaries are partners. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I would love the chance to cultivate some leads and do the work to get this set up everywhere.
Okay, I'll get you the South Central Foundation, because I think they're from Pratt, and they cover that whole area, and there might be someone to be interested. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Always good to see you. All right, a couple questions. The counties that have no operational program, do we know why that is?
Lack of a local partner.
Okay, so if you get this 501c3, that can't become kind of that bridge because
we can and we will. That's my goal, is one way or another to just get moving on full statewide coverage. I think we have a couple population centers that need more programs that will be a little more costly, but most of those rural counties, I don't have to tell you, it's not going to be a high price tag to implement the program. So I think we do have the option of stepping in and fully underwriting the cost of the program as we get it standing up.
Mr. Chairman. Okay.
You may.
Thank you. So explain the partial coverage, like in Johnson counties because of different boroughs or whatever, not. Is that how, and even like in Gray County, I mean, I don't see a lot of metropolitan areas in Gray County, so.
Yeah, so the coverage map that you're seeing is colored in by county for simplicity's sake. The actual map is arranged by zip codes, so local partners can choose, we're going to cover in this zip code area, but not the next one over, and that sometimes is the way. In Johnson County in particular, the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation stepped up in September and joined as a partner. They've signed up 3,600 Johnson County children already, just since the end of September. It's a wildly popular program among their district footprint. I have been I've been able to sit down with the Johnson County Library Foundation, the Olathe and Blue Valley and Gardner school education foundations. So far, nobody has been willing to come on board. So we are continuing to try and do the work to identify appropriate partners.
Okay, one last question, sorry.
Representative Rogers.
I know one of this got started for the Hanson Foundation.
Yes.
It's in my district, in fact, in my home county. So are they still funding then the Northwest Canada, 37 counties?
A phenomenal partner.
Right.
Betsy Waring is on, we have an advisory committee to the Children's Cabinet. She serves as a representative on that committee. They are a phenomenal partner.
Well, good, all right, thank you. That was what it was. I just want to make sure, because as it grew, if those ones that were early kind of partners are still there, so.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions for Ms. Ruker? All right, seeing none, thank you, and thank you for your testimony. I would also like to express my proponent testimony, I guess verbally, for House Bill 2191. As the executive director mentioned, there is an advisory committee, and they have met during the creation of the statewide program for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I'm a member of that advisory committee, and so one of the items in order to keep this, going back to your question, Representative Rogers, a public-private partnership for this program is to establish the 501c3 so we can solicit other foundations to participate in the program so we can truly make this a statewide program, which was the intent when we had this introduced in the bill a couple of years ago. So we want to keep the partners like the Dane G. Hansen Foundation, which obviously is in your district, my district, and they have made that possible for all the kids in that particular 28-county western Kansas area to be a participant of the program from ages 0 to 5. I don't think I need to express that my son is part of the program when he was born in Salina. And in fact, when my sons were born just a couple weeks ago, when we were discharged from the hospital, there was the paperwork to sign them up for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, courtesy of the Dane Hansen Foundation for being that private partner. We just want to have the 501c3 established so we can talk to other foundations to assist the areas in the state of Kansas that are not currently being serviced by the program and can truly make this a statewide program. So that's my comments in regards to House Bill 2191. Representative Ballard.
Mr. Chairman, since you serve on that committee, and I think I've told you the story that I saw Dolly Parton when she did a plug at NCSL for her imaginary, and it was unbelievable. What, did I miss it? What's the percentage of the state is being covered?
I think the executive director would have the accurate number of what's being covered, and then there's also a threshold that the Dollywood Foundation establishes as far as being an established statewide program. And so I'm going to have the executive director go through those numbers. Melissa?
Thank you. So currently 25% of eligible children in the state are enrolled in the program. It equates to about 48,000, almost 49,000 children. And understand that's a net total because every month you have children turning 5 and aging out and children being born. So as an example, in February, we signed up 1,354 new children, but we had 996 graduate out of the program. So net new gain, we've grown the program by almost 10,000 children in the last year, which is great. The goal for full enrollment in the eyes of the Dollywood Foundation and the program is to get to 2/3 of eligible children enrolled because there are reasons families may choose not to enroll.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And to keep that point in mind, that this is an opt-in. So
Yeah.
parents have to sign their child up. It's not they're automatically enrolled and have to opt out. And like I said, we're going to be signing my sons up for the program because my son is going to be aging out. He's going to turn 5 in September, but yet we still want to receive the books.
But that's a net new gain of one new, right?
Yeah, we're going to have 2. Yeah. Representative Ballard.
I'll just follow up on that. Is there anything that we could send out or include in newsletters to make our constituents aware of this program? maybe moms and dads are too busy to do it, but I could see a grandparent thinking, you know what, I think I may sign them up to do this, because if we're trying to reach 2/3 and we're at 25%, I just wondered if maybe we have something that we could all include in a newsletter so people are really aware of it. Because there's a lot of people in Lawrence, when I mention it at forums and all, they go, oh, really? I didn't know about it, you know, and I've been talking about it for I don't know how many years.
There is links that we could have that supplied to you, and other outreach availabilities, but former Representative Rucker, Executive Director Rucker.
So, yeah, we can supply you with a QR code and the links to more information about the program. I have been a little bit hesitant to do that, given that we are still scaling up and not every area is involved. And I have not wanted to put you all in a position of promoting something that you then get angry constituent calls saying, wait, we tried and we're not eligible. So bear with us just a little longer and we will get there so that everyone is happy when it goes out.
Thank you. That's because I mind my own business. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none. We do have other proponent testimony. It's written testimony, and we have that from Sonia Olmos, the Operations and Communications Manager with Oral Health Kansas. And then we just got this morning, and that is written testimony from Nora Briggs, the Executive Director of the Dollywood Foundation. So that should have been passed out to all of the committee members as we just received that this morning. I am not seeing any opponent or neutral testimony in regards to House Bill 2191. So if there is any opponent or neutral testimony, now is your chance. And seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing on House Bill 2191. All right, committee, we're going to go and move on to action on bills that we had hearings on, I believe it was last week, on 2077, and then also we're going to move on to 2078. So Natalie, could you give an update or just give us a briefing on what those two bills were, and then we'll move on to discussion on those particular bills.
Sure, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2077 would implement additional reporting requirements for information technology projects that would be required to be followed by state agencies, and it would also require additional information technology security training and status reports. Do you want me to go into 2078 at the same time?
You might as well, yes.
Okay. And House Bill 2078 would change the membership requirements, the terms for members, and the quorum requirements for the Information Technology Executive Council.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open up discussion on House Bill 2077. Committee, are there any amendments? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment that it just cleans up a couple of things. Natalie, if you could pass these out. So this amendment, if you look on page 12, it's the second page, but it's page 12. There's a balloon there, but if you look at on number 7, that is what this amendment adds. It'll make it so that the executive branch CETO has the authority to set cybersecurity policy and standards for the executive branch agency. So as we move into doing more with cybersecurity, I think it's important that the CETO has that ability to set that policy. And then the last part of that would just be that it would set that they have to report audit reports to the CETO and rules and regulations. So it's fairly simple. I hate to say that word, but it is. So I would move the adoption of this amendment.
Okay, so you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Curtis. Discussion on the amendment. Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment. This is completing some of the work that has been discussed in the Joint Committee on Information Technology, and I think really helps kind of strengthen our policy. So just wanted to comment about the JCIT work.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing none. Representative Hoffman, you may close on your amendment.
I close on my amendment.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is passed. We're back on the bill for 2077. Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have an amendment. If Natalie would help pass this out. This deals with, as we heard this bill and had discussion, we talked about the issue as far as mandatory reporting. When there's a breach, sometimes that is not reported in a timely manner, which, then makes us vulnerable. So part of that, as we discussed in JCIT, is just people not knowing what that process is. If you think of it in terms of when we have a tornado or any kind of other emergency management situation, people know immediately, like the protocol and who to contact. So this would help clarify the process when there is a cybersecurity breach, that entities that connect with our state system would need to follow to make sure that then we can mitigate any further damage and, have greater protections in place. So do you want me to walk through the specifics of that amendment, or should?
Why don't you go ahead and walk through the specifics before we have the motion to have a discussion on it?
Okay. So it would require that not later than 12 hours after discovery of a significant cybersecurity incident breach, that there would be a reporting to the Kansas Information Security Office. And then that agency could then put in place what is necessary to both protect the state system, but then also assist those that are connected with our system in dealing with the issue. So that's the main part of the, I'll just pause for questions.
All right. Do you want to make a motion for the amendment?
Okay, I move that we amend House Bill 2077
As you described.
as described.
Right.
Thank you.
Second by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the amendment. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, does this require the state also to notify any individuals that might have been compromised?
Representative Curtis.
You mean individuals, personal individuals?
Yes.
Or no, that does, this would be more an agency that's connected to our state system, that they would be notifying us of a cybersecurity breach. So for instance, a city or county government, public education, that kind of.
Representative Tarwater.
Okay. Is there any requirement that the state notify individuals that they might have been breached?
That'd be a question for research. Natalie.
Mr. Chairman, I am not aware of a statute that requires that. There could be something in ITech policy or something of that nature that could require that. So I'd have to look into that and get back with you.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's extremely important because it's the individuals that are actually harmed. It's not really the state. It's the individuals, the end user who lost their identity. And Kansas was ranked #1 in the nation for the last couple of years for identity theft. So we should probably look into that. Thank you.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with that, that we probably should maybe look at if there is a requirement for, if something happens that individuals get notified. This is more, though, to just make sure that if something happens at a city level or county level, and they touch our system, that the state is notified so that we can separate ourselves from that system before they infect us. And then we'd have a huge problem of having to, more people affected. So that's what this does. So that other is probably a valid point. We probably should look at it, but that's not exactly what this is doing.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one is, I'm familiar certainly with, I think, what the responsibilities would be. I'm just not familiar with where the Kansas Information Security Office is located in the hierarchy of administration. Can somebody point me out where that resides?
Representative Curtis or Representative Hoffman?
Anyone. Jump ball.
I think it's in the CETO's office. Yes, I'm getting a nod that it's in the CETO's office.
I haven't seen that job description, so I was just curious on that. That's where it belongs, absolutely. I just had never seen that it did indeed reside there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions on the Curtis amendment? Representative Turk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this might be for research. Out of curiosity and for my situational awareness, could anybody direct me to where, and to save me like 4 hours of reading, can anybody direct me to where I can find the definition of a significant as used in this to determine what a significant cybersecurity incident? Bottom?
Actually, on the amendment in section, the new section 1.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it very much. I'm blinded by all the words, and I appreciate you helping me.
That's all right. That's all right. Any further questions in regards to the Curtis amendment? All right, seeing none. Representative Curtis.
Mr. Chair, before I close, just a couple of things. One would be just to point out that when an agency reports that information stays, secure with the CETO, it's not something that's made public and then they work through the issue. So just to make that point. And then one other thing is, I don't know if we can do this, but I just noticed in new section 1 where we say supports information systems in the state of Kansas, we probably should say of the state of Kansas, just so that we clarify that and make sure that they understand that it's not systems in the state of Kansas, but it's of the state of Kansas.
I would have the revisers actually
Okay, thank you.
answer all that. Which we need a substitute motion to change the language, will we? Or just, I don't know, we can ask Jill.
I think she can change it because it's her amendment, and so she can say that, I think, as long as I agree to that's the second, I believe. So I need to,
Natalie?
so I'll need to make a motion to put them two together, and then in the final.
Have a house substitute. Right, Natalie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think after consulting with the CISO over there, that perhaps maybe inserting something that says like supports information systems operated by the state of Kansas would be capturing, I think, what Representative Curtis is trying to capture there.
So Representative Curtis, do you want to have that language added to your initial amendment?
Yes, please.
And then is that all right with the second? Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion in regards to the Curtis amendment? All right, seeing none, Representative Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close on my amendment.
All right, committee, you've heard the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're back on the bill as amended for House Bill 2077. Any further discussion? Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would make a motion that we insert the contents of House Bill 2078 into House 2077.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Helgerson. Discussion on the Hoffman amendment. Seeing none, Representative Hoffman, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Back on House Bill 2077 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we create a House substitute for House Bill 2077. So I would move the passage of House substitute bill for House Bill 2077, something like that. It's in the.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Curtis. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in Representative Hoffman, you may close.
I close.
All right, you've heard the motion to pass out House substitute for House Bill 2077. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The bill is passed out of committee. All right, committee, you should have received a report through email on the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Annual Report for 2022. So if you'll please take a look at that. And then right now, I'm going to acknowledge Representative Landwehr for a point of personal privilege. Representative Landwehr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, when you work long enough around this building and you make a lot of friends with our staff. And today we are losing one of our long-term staff members. I believe the years are 20 years that she has been with us in legislative research, and that would be Amy Deckard. And I believe you started as a fiscal analyst, is that correct? Yep. Social services budget, yep. So Barbara Ballard and I, or Representative Ballard, excuse me, have worked with her for many, many years, and I know a lot of others have too, but she has been a phenomenal resource, and her memory is impeccable. It's like you go back, remember when we did? And she's like, yeah, let me go find that. And she finds it. So this will be Amy's last day with us. She's going to move across the street, which I'm unhappy about that, but I am happy for her because it's going to be a great opportunity, and they're getting a great person to work with. So Amy, thank you very much for your service to the legislature, and good luck on your new adventure.
Thank you, Representative Landwehr, and if I would like to extend on your comments and my gratitude for everything that you've contributed for the Appropriations Committee for the last few years. You are a great asset. You will be greatly missed, but we wish you well. Representative Sutton. Sadly to say, no, it is not a debatable motion. So, but we wish you the best. Thank you, and thank you for everything you've done. So with that, committee, until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we are adjourned.